HS 3.3. So we've looked at some of the, we've looked at what happens to glucose in the liver. It's taken up and it's stored as glycogen. In the fed state and in the fasted state, glycogenolysis happens via glucose 6-phosphatase to provide more glucose to the body. So now let's look at the lipids. Well, similarly to glucose, the liver takes up free fatty acids from two places: chylomicrons, which are lipoproteins, and from adipocytes, which is fat tissue. And when it takes up these fats, it then stores them as triglycerides by reasterifying them. It also takes fats and binds them to apoproteins to make lipoproteins. On top of this, the liver also does de novo lipogenesis, which makes liver fat using glucose. Now, this reesterification to free fatty acids, this prevents non-alcoholic liver disease. So let's have a look at that. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Let's see what that is. Well, if you're obese, then you're more likely to have insulin resistance. So if you have insulin resistance, then the body is not really seeing the effects of insulin, so the body is going to overproduce insulin. And what insulin does is it prevents lipolysis, which is the breakdown of lipids into free fatty acids, and instead causes free fatty acids to be taken up into the liver, which causes fatty liver. Now, initially this build-up is harmless, and it's called steatosis. However, this can progress to non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. Steato meaning fat, hepatitis meaning liver, itis meaning disease. So non-alcoholic steatohepatitis is called NASH, and the liver becomes inflamed. So this harmless fat buildup becomes liver inflammation. When the liver becomes inflamed, then the healing process happens, this fibrosis. And fibrosis results in scar tissue, as a result of the scar tissue. This will then progress and become permanent, which is called cirrhosis, which is a scarred, lumpy, rough, permanent damage. And cirrhosis has some complications. It can result in varices, as I mentioned in the lecture on the functions of the mouth and esophagus. What it does is the cirrhosis results in increased portal pressure, which causes esophageal varices. It causes fluid buildup called ascites, and it also results in renal failure. The fibrosis also causes a loss of the lobular structure of the liver, which you can see here as it progresses. Now, this fibrosis can also be caused by alcohol, and it can also be caused by viral hepatitis, to which there is a strong immune response which damages the liver. So overall, insulin resistance causes fatty liver through this method here: overproducing insulin, preventing glycolysis, building up fatty acid, causing steatosis, which is harmless, NASH, fibrosis, cirrhosis, which then leads to the complications. So I mentioned lipoproteins. What do? Well, lipoproteins transport cholesterol to the liver. Fats are insoluble in water, so therefore they're transported as spherical lipoproteins. Lipo meaning fat, so it's the LDL, low density lipoprotein, and proteins, which the lipoproteins which can be either LDLs or VLDLs, And what happens is that they transport the cholesterol to the liver inside LDLs, and they go from the intestines and liver to peripheral tissue to supply the tissues to cholesterol, to supply cholesterol to the tissues.